Students, welcome back to Nikunjan Raj Tutorials by Clan Lalbagh. This is our contact number for any doubts. So today we'll be doing class 8 physics 4th chapter, that is energy. Okay, and it's me, Raj sir. So energy is one of the most important chapters in your textbook because it has applications throughout the subject. So the topics which we'll study in this chapter are: first is what is work. We often use the term work like homework, office work, but in physics work means something else, that is the technical aspect of work. When can an event be qualified as work? We'll study that. Then in work we'll also study the factors which affect the work and the unit of work, because we need to study the formula based on which we'll solve numericals, and in that numericals we'll use the unit of work. Then next is the next main topic. Work was the first main topic in the chapter. Next is energy. In energy we'll study its types. Okay, energy is closely related to work, so we'll see their relation. Then types: energy is broadly classified into two types. These are the classification which you have studied in your lower standards, that is kinetic energy, and the second is potential energy. Okay, so we'll study in detail what is kinetic energy and what is potential energy. After that, probably in the first video we'll complete till gravitational potential energy. This gravitational potential energy is a subpart of potential energy. This is very important because the Newton's laws of motions are based on gravitational potential energy. So in the first video complete this 4 topic. Then in the second video we'll do the next topic, that is transformation of energy. What is transformation? First of all, let's understand there is an important law based on energy which you've studied in previous class. Like, energy can neither be created nor be destroyed. It can be changed from one form to another. That means we cannot create energy. Energy is already there in this universe. We just have to change the form of the energy according to our use. So that change is nothing but the transformation of energy. So this transformation and different forms of energy will be studied under this topic. And the next topic here is power. This will be the last topic of the chapter. Here we'll see what is the formula of power, its application, its comparison with energy, and its unit. Okay, let's move on. So first start with work. Now, okay, so in work, let's see certain examples of work. This is the first example. Here we can see that this boy is trying to push a car. The car is not moving, it is stationary, but he is trying hard to push the car. Let's see this example. Here this person A and person B, these are two persons who are trying to pull the rope towards each other, but they both are applying same force. So do you think will the rope move on either directions? No, because they both are applying same force. In the third diagram you can see this child is trying to climb the ladder. Okay, he's successfully doing it. He's moving in the upward direction by applying force using his hands and legs. In this fourth diagram we can see, using the hands we are trying to change the shape and size of this playing ball. So what is common about these examples, and what relation does it have with work? So see, you have to understand that work depends on two things. It depends on the force and movement. That is, when you apply force, only if the object moves, it is said that work is done. If the object does not move, then we say that no work is done. Okay, so let's come back to the first example here. The first example was this boy pushing the car. He was applying force, but the car did not move. If the car did not move, there was no movement, and if there was no movement, no work is done in this case. So work needs force and movement. Okay, then in this example, fourth one, we saw that both of them were applying force. This person A and person B, both were applying force, but the force was equal and in opposite direction, and that is why this rope did not move. And because this rope did not move, there was no movement. That means even in this case there was no work done. So in the remaining two cases, work is done. How? See, in this case the child was moving in the upward direction and he was applying force. So there was force also and there was movement also. If we have both force and movement, if we apply force and object goes into motion, object or anything, even ourselves, if we go in motion, that means we say that work is done. So there is motion here. And in this fourth case, we are applying force and there is a change in shape and size of the object. Even then we say that work is done. Okay. So let's conclude here that work is done when force is applied and there is movement. So when is work not done? When is no work done? When we say that, let's say this boy is trying to push a wall here. This is a wall. However hard he pushes, he cannot shift the wall or make the wall move. So even if he is applying force here, but there is no work done. Okay, no work is done because there is no motion. Okay. Let's come to the next topic. That is, now we have understood what is work. So let's see the definition of work. Definition. Work is said to be done if the force applied on the body moves it. So these are the two keywords here. We are applying force and the body moves. So when we apply force, body moves, we said that work is said to be done. If no motion takes place, no work is said to be done. So if we are applying force and there is no motion, then no work is said to be done. Understood? So based on this, we say what are the factors affecting work. So the factors affecting work are, there are two important factors. The magnitude of, just cancel this is force. So the first factor is magnitude of force applied and the distance moved by the body. The two factors which affect force are, the first factor is magnitude of force. Magnitude means basically the value, the amount of force you apply. Okay, so if I am applying more force, more work will be done. And if the object is moving at a greater distance, then we say that more work is done. For example, if a person is running 10 kilometers and the another person is running 20 kilometers, so the person running 20 kilometers has done more work because he has traveled more distance. So we have done 4 topics now. 2 topics till now: the definition of work, the factors of work, and now the other 2 topics in work are the formula and unit of work. So the formula of work is based on the concept. What was the concept? Work depends on 2 things. It depends on force and it depends on distance. So the formula is also W is F into D, where W is the symbol of work. This capital W, and this F here, this F stands for force, and the capital D stands for distance moved by the object. Okay, so this is the formula of work. Why is this formula important? Because we have numericals based on this formula. Okay, next let's see the unit of work. So the unit of work is derived from the formula itself. So the formula is force into distance. So the unit of force into unit of distance. Now, what is the unit of force? The SI unit of force. The SI unit of force is newtons, denoted by capital N. And the SI unit of distance is meters, small m. See, distance has many units like centimeters, kilometers, but this is the SI unit of distance. Okay, so now we saw that the unit of force and distance is Newton meters. Okay, this Newton meters, for simplicity, is written as joules. This J here stands for joules. Joule is the name of a scientist who has done great discoveries. So in his name we have kept the unit of work. Technically we can say the unit of work is Newton meters, but for simplicity we use capital J as the unit of work, and that J stands for joules. Okay, so next, once we know what is joules, let's understand that what is 1 joule. See, in this next formula we saw 1 joule is equals to 1 Newton into 1 meter. See, unit of work is joules, unit of force is Newton, unit of distance is meters. So 1 joule is equals to 1 Newton into 1 meter. So what is 1 joule? If they ask you a question, define 1 joule. How can we define 1 joule? Using this formula itself. How? See, 1 joule is the amount of work done when we apply a force of 1 Newton. See, let's say this is an object. I am applying a force of 1 Newton on this object, and this object moves at a distance of 1 meter. It shifts by 1 meter. So I am applying a force of 1 Newton. The object moves by 1 meter. So in this case I say that the work done is 1 joule. Okay, clear? Now let's see the bigger units of joule. Like this was joule normal. Let's say the work done is 100 joules, 50 joules. So what are the bigger units of joules? Bigger units, like if I have 10,000 joules or 1 lakh joules. So how to write this in easier way? This can be written like, the bigger units of joules are kilojoules and megajoules. Kilojoules, 1 kilojoule is nothing but 1000 joules, because this kilo, K, stands for 1000. Okay, this kilo is used in a lot of places like kilometers, kilograms. So in the same way it is used here for kilojoules. And this megajoules, this M here, megajoules, stands for 10 raised to 6. 10 raised to 6 means 1 followed by 6 zeros. So if I have 10 raised to 6 joules, I can write it as 1 megajoule. Okay, these have applications in higher calculations. In your school you will have normal calculations where we'll use only joules. Okay, next. So with this we complete the topic work. Now the second important topic, the main topic of the chapter, is energy. So let's see what is energy. See, energy is, normally we use the word energy in various applications. Like I have given a simple picture here. Most famous batsman, identify it. He is none other than MS Dhoni. Now you can see him sweeping the ball, and you can see his arms, he's flexing his muscles, applying a lot of energy here. And what is his aim here? To hit the ball as hard as possible. So by applying this energy, he's trying to do some work. See, here his aim is to hit the ball as hard as possible so it may reach the boundary, for example. So basically he is applying a lot of energy here and doing some work. So what I am trying to conclude here is that the amount of energy you apply will decide the amount of work you do. For example, if you are very tired, you won't be able to do any work. So that means the amount of energy you have will decide the amount of work you do. So the first point is energy is equals to work. Energy and work are same. Why? Because the amount of energy you have will decide the amount of work you do. Okay, so if they are same, the unit of energy is also joules. Because the unit of work is joules, what was the formula for work? Formula was F into D, based on which we found that the unit of work was joules. So the unit of energy, because work and energy are same, the unit of energy is also joules. The formula for energy is also same. It is F into D, the same formula which we used for work. Okay, so this was the basic introduction of energy. Let's see the types of energy. So these are a few types of energy. See, there are many types, but in our syllabus we have only few types. So out of these, the most important are gravitational energy, kinetic energy, and potential energy. These three we'll be studying in detail in the later part of the video. Before that, let's have a basic introduction about all the forms of energy which I have listed here. So the first is mechanical energy. Mechanical energy is when an object is in motion. Whenever an object is moving, like a fan, it's constantly moving in rotational direction, so it possesses mechanical energy. What is thermal energy? Thermal energy is the energy because of heat. We know steam engine, where coal is burnt and produces a lot of steam, which runs the train. So that is nothing but thermal energy. Okay, next is nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is because of the radioactive substances like uranium, plutonium. These are radioactive substances which, when processed, emit a lot of energy which can be used for producing electricity. So that was nuclear energy. Then we have chemical energy. Chemical energy, the most common examples is your batteries, mobile phone batteries. The electric energy is converted into chemical energy and stored in your batteries in a form of a liquid. Next is electromagnetic energy. See, this energy you do not have in your textbook, so we'll leave it. We'll do sonic energy. Sonic means sound energy. See, any sound which travels a particular distance carries some energy in it, and there are many applications also. For example, ultrasonography. Sonography, you might have heard that sonography is nothing but using sound energy to produce images of the body organs. So that is sonic energy. Then these three energies we'll be doing in the video later. And the last one is ionization energy. That is the energy produced or utilized when ions are formed. This energy you will study in chemistry. So these were the types of energy. Let's start with the first important type, that is the mechanical energy. Okay, so the energy possessed by the body due to the state of rest or due to the state of motion is called as mechanical energy. Now there might a question arise in your mind that state of rest and state of motion. State of motion, we understand that if anything is in a state of motion, it will possess some energy. But how can an object have energy when it is in a state of rest? So you have to understand that when an object is at rest, the energy which it possesses is called as the potential energy. And when the object is in motion, the energy which it possesses is the kinetic energy. So the two types of energy are potential energy and kinetic energy. Now let's study these two energies in full detail. So first we'll do potential energy. Okay, so let's see a picture here. I can see this boy with the brown hair. He has two bricks. See, one brick is near the ground level, and the other brick, he is holding a brick above the ground level. Okay, so which of these two bricks has more energy in it? See, this ground level brick cannot do anything. It is near the ground, so it doesn't have any energy with him. But this brick which he is holding with his hand above the ground level has some energy, because once he leaves this brick, if this brick falls down, okay, once this brick falls down, it will have an impact on the ground. Maybe the ground maybe the floor tile may get damaged, or the brick may break. So there is some energy in this brick because of this height, which will have an impact when it falls. So this energy which is there in this brick because of its height is called as the potential energy. Let's see one more example. Here we can see that there is a rock kept on this cliff. Now this rock is stationary. We assume that it is stationary, it is not falling down, it is not moving. But still this rock has a lot of energy in it. Why? Because this rock is above the ground level. This rock is above the ground level, and because of its position, it has a lot of energy in it. So if this rock falls down, if there is any object below here, this rock will definitely damage this object. This rock, when it falls down, will damage the object. So from where did this energy come from? This energy was because of the potential energy. It was because of the position of the rock, which was on the cliff face. Okay, so these were two examples of potential energy based on height. Now we'll see the potential energy due to the shape of an object. So this third image here, this shows that how using the palm of our hand we are applying a downward force and compressing this spring. I have compressed this spring. So however hard I compress, it will keep storing the energy in it. A lot of energy is stored in this spring when I compress it, and this energy will get converted if I release the spring. Okay, so what will happen after conversion we'll see in kinetic energy. But when it is compressed, it is in the compressed state. This spring here, when it is in the compressed state, it has a lot of energy, and that energy is nothing but potential energy. Okay, because of the shape of an object. Let's see one more example here. See, this is a catapult, and there's a small piece of stone here. We have stretched this rubber band hard. Correct, we have stretched this rubber band hard to make sure that the stone has a lot of energy in it. So before releasing the stone, when it is in its stretched state, this stretched state, it has a lot of energy, and that energy which the stone has in the stretched state is nothing but the potential energy. Understood? I hope you have got it. Potential energy. Next is the subtopic of potential energy, that is gravitational potential energy. Gravitational potential energy. Now, in the previous two examples, see this example of a boy here and this example of a rock. In both these examples, you see the energy possessed by this object was because of the height of an object, and the object was falling downwards. Correct? Note this point that the object was falling downwards. So let's come back to a next slide. That was gravitational potential energy. Now, first I'll discuss with you an important experiment. See this image carefully. You can see here, can you recollect this incident, a famous incident in scientific history? Here sitting is a scientist, famous scientist, and we can see an apple falling on his head. So this scientist is Sir Isaac Newton, and you know this experiment, this event very well, that an apple fell on his head, which prompted him to think that why did the apple fell in the downward direction and not otherwise? Why didn't the apple went sideways or in the upward direction? Why did it fell only downward direction? So after immense thinking, he came to the conclusion that the earth has a force in its center which pulls all objects towards its center, and that force is nothing but the gravitational force, because of which earth pulls all objects towards its center. So this is gravitational force, and because of this gravitational force we have that all object falls down, and because the objects fall down, when they are at a particular height, they have some energy, and that energy is the potential energy. Like for example, this is a ground level and there is an apple here. Okay. This is an apple. So this apple is at this stage, at this particular height. Okay. And the gravity is constantly pulling the apple down. So once I cut the stem or a branch from here, this apple will fall down. So this apple fell down because of the gravity. So when this apple fell down, it will have an impact on the ground. It has some energy due to which it fell down. So that energy is potential energy, which was in picture because of the gravity. Okay, so the gravity is pulling the object down, and that is why any object which has energy due to its height, any object that has energy due to its height and then it later falls down, this energy is because of the gravity. Okay, so this was the introduction of gravitational potential energy. Let's see some examples. First, let's see the definition. The amount of work done in moving up to the height h against the force of gravity acting on the body is gravitational potential energy. What is gravitational potential energy? See, object has energy because the energy gets stored in the object when the object is raised up to a particular height. What am I saying is, let's say this is a ground level and there is an object kept here. When the object is at ground level, it has no energy. But when you lift this object and you place it at a particular height, it gains energy. So that energy which you spent to move the object up to a certain height h against the force of gravity. See, when you are moving an object, you have to apply some force, you have to spend some energy. That energy you spend against the force of gravity, because gravity is pulling the object down, you want to take the object up. So that energy which you apply to move the object up to a height h. So I'll repeat the definition again. The work done in moving the body up to a height h. For example, if I have an object and I am moving the object till the height h against the force of gravity. So this is against the force of gravity because gravity is pulling the object down. I am moving the object up. So I am doing some work. That work done is nothing but gravitational potential energy. I hope you have understood. We'll see some examples also later. First, let's see the next point after the definition, that is denoted by U. See, gravitational potential energy is denoted by capital U. We'll have numericals based on this. So the formula for gravitational potential energy is m into g into h. Here this m stands for mass of an object. See, objects with different mass have different potential energy. A small object compared to a big object will have less potential energy. A big object will definitely have greater potential energy. When it will fall on the ground, this bigger object will have a greater impact compared to this smaller object. Okay, so m stands for mass, which is an important factor in gravitational potential energy. This h here stands for the height. See, if the height increases, the energy will also increase. For example, if there is an object here, I want to raise it up to this height. Let's say I am applying some energy, and in the second case I want to lift this object till here. So in the second case the height is more, so I'll have to apply more energy here. So in the formula, this h denotes that higher you want to shift the object, greater is the amount of energy required. Okay, so let's take some values here. Let's say I applied 100 joules energy here. The unit of energy is also joules, I've told you. So to shift the object up to this height, So in this case, in second case, when I want to shift it here, maybe I'll have to apply 150 joules. Okay. So we saw what is M, that is mass, and then we saw what is H. So here we have G also. This G stands for gravity. See, gravity is constantly applying force. On Earth, the value of G remains constant. So in numericals also, you will be given the value of G, which you will directly substitute. But why is this value included in the formula? Because see, this formula is universal. Let's imagine that you have to calculate the potential energy on moon. Okay, if you want to calculate the potential energy on moon, the gravity on moon is not the same as that of Earth or any other planet. Different planets have different value of gravity. So there, this gravitational potential energy will change. And that is why we have this formula G in the formula. Okay. So next is the unit. Unit, as I have said, the unit is same as that of work, because this is also energy, and work and energy have same unit. The last, again I'll repeat a concept here, that higher the height, greater is the GPE. I'm repeating this again because this is very important here to understand the give reasons. So GPE is nothing but gravitational potential energy, in short. So higher the height, greater is the gravitational potential energy. Let's see an example here. You can see this picture. There are two skiers who are here to ski. There is snow here and they want to ski. Both of them are applying a force of 500 newtons. Both of them are applying same force. But you can see one is at a height this much and the other is starting from a higher height. So which of them will move with a greater speed? Yes, you guessed it right. The one who starts from a higher point, because when you are at a higher point, you have greater gravitational potential energy in you. Earth is pulling you harder, and that is why you will move with a greater speed. Understood? That is gravitational potential energy. So today we'll do up to this topic, gravitational potential energy. In the next video, we'll study in detail about the kinetic energy, the conversion of energy, transformation, and what is power. Okay? Thank you.